Because he's hot.
Yes! Yes! Wesker! Oh, no beard!
Together.
Oh, he's cute. I played this. I remember this dude.
Listen, I'm just glad it's not fucking Chris Redfield.
You there, Leon?
Let's go!
You there, Leon?
Nice. Over the years, few video game characters have had the lasting impact of Italian-American icon Leon Scott Kennedy. But why is that the case? Why, for nearly 30 years, have gamers thirsted over this corny-ass white boy? What makes him such an enduring icon, and what has contributed to his popularity as a character? In a series featuring dozens of playable characters, what is it about this guy that has made him the series' most recurring protagonist, especially considering Claire's right there, Capcom? She's right there! What has made Leon so enduring? What is it about him that makes him the quintessential survival horror game protagonist? Why do we love Leon S. Kennedy? Well, to begin to answer that question, we first have to go back to the 90s. Look at this guy. His posture, his single cool guy eyeball visible due to the jaunty cool guy slant of his baseball cap, his arms crossed while also tucked into his armpits, his 2 necklaces. Would you guess this boy band looking ass is the protagonist of one of the most groundbreaking survival horror action games of all time? Well, he is. After the immense success of 1995's Resident Evil, developer Capcom was in a position to capitalize on that success by delivering a sequel. But what would that sequel even look like? Following the departure of both legendary Capcom producer Tokuro Fujiwara and Kenichi Iwao, Ari's original scenario writer, and the promotion of director Shinji Mikami to the role of producer, who would step up to provide Resident Evil 2's creative direction? Enter Hideki Kamiya. Hired by Capcom in 1994, originally working as a system planner on the original Resident Evil, as well as being the man who named Chris, Jill, and Wesker, names he apparently lifted out of a magazine, Kamiya was chosen by Mikami to direct RE2. Only problem being that this extremely cool dude just isn't the biggest fan of horror. So then what would that bode for RE2? The answer is that, in short, it would not bode well, at least at first. RE2's troubled and extremely protracted for-the-time development cycle of 3 years, only being steered from ruin by the addition to the team of seasoned television writer Noboru Sugimura, who would help whip RE2's plot into shape, as well as Kamiya's humility in choosing to scrap all work on the game in favor of starting over fresh. The original version of the game, the prototype of which I'm showing footage of right now, would go on to be known as RE 1.5, and it's only because of its failure that Kamiya and co. would be able to deliver the masterpiece we now know as Resident Evil 2. RE2 is a fascinating game for a plethora of reasons. Its more streamlined survival horror gameplay, given an even more quantifiable, practicable, perfectible action game flavor, making it one of the most smokable games of all time. I dare you, if you've never played it before, boot it up right now and try not to finish it. What you'll find is a shockingly modern, though historically importantly vintaged, video game. Proof that 1998 really was the greatest year in gaming. I love this game with my life. Although RE1 Director's Cut with the Clowns farting is still better. But emblematic of all those changes and refinements, there from the very beginning as the icon of Kamiya's original vision for the game, was RE2's protagonist, Leon Scott Kennedy. What's interesting first and foremost about Leon is that he's the protagonist of a game called Resident Evil 2. Compared to the muscle-bound, military-coded figure of STAR's operative and male protagonist of the prior game, Chris Redfield, Leon's canonical sub-6 foot, 155-pound build doesn't really seem like it gels with RE2's stated goal of being a more action-focused survival horror title. That is, unless you take a look at what was happening to action movie stars in the late 80s and 90s. After the bombastic antics of Schwarzenegger and Stallone throughout much of the 1980s, a shift began to recur in Hollywood. Gone were the days of chicken and rice cells committing mass murder in Colombia or Nicaragua. In were more sensible, realistic, flesh and blood action heroes who would cut their feet on glass, or be a woman, or be this guy. Characters that were more relatable to audiences as masculine ideals would change and progress as the millennium drew to a close. Leon S. Kennedy then perfectly fits within this mold, succeeding Chris as Ari's new dude protagonist, a move that aligns with this shift in action movie stars. Leon being as perfect of a leading man as you could get for 1998. He's Leo in Titanic, or Brad Pitt in Meet Joe Black, or Matt Damon in Rounders. An all-American farm-raised Bishonen, swishy haircut and all.
Okay, now let's send his bony ass to hell.
A rookie cop on his first day on the job, RE2 sees young Leon fighting for his life to escape Raccoon City amidst a zombie outbreak. Over the course of a story that sees him exploring the now dilapidated Raccoon City Police Department, littered with the reanimated corpses of colleagues on the force he never got to meet, placing his trust in fellow survivor and FBI agent Ada Wong, a trust that is ultimately taken advantage of as Ada turns out to be a mercenary seeking to steal a sample of the G-Virus, the thing responsible for the more grotesque monsters now rampaging through the city. Over the course of the night, traveling deep into the heart of Raccoon City in search of an escape from the nightmare, discovering that the evil that befell its streets and its people stemmed from a secret Umbrella Pharmaceuticals research facility that had been lying in residence underneath everyone's noses. Take me out back and shoot me for that. If it's a story about anything, it's about a young person, clear in their beliefs and convictions, being ushered into the world of adulthood in the most gruesomely nightmarish way possible. RE2 was a coming-of-age story. And it's the coming of age of a surprisingly doofy and kind of grating guy, Leon's actual depiction in game being slightly different than what you'd expect based on his concept art. The early 3D CGI cutscenes paint him in a kind of goofy light, especially when compared to Claire. There's just a certain gangly awkwardness to his character model that makes him feel like the actual kind of guy that he is. He's a rookie cop. It's his first day on the job. He's landed himself in a waking nightmare, just doing his best to keep himself and others around him alive. He whines, he can be weirdly condescending, he spends most of the game having a one-sided romance with Ada.
Ada, wait! Hey!
It's those annoyances that endear us to him. The voice work of the late Paul Haddad giving us a surprisingly nuanced picture of a young man walking out into the world with a heart full of pure intentions, joining the police force out of wanting to fulfill naive ideals of truth and justice, only to have his worldview completely torn apart. Witness to a mass tragedy the likes of which had never before been seen on Earth, contending against a host of unspeakable horrors, finding out that actually his feelings for Ada were reciprocated before this happens.
Ada. No.
Leon's triumphs over the evils of that fateful evening in September of 1998, and the emotional toll it must have taken to survive and overcome, are perfectly embodied in the game's design as a more action-focused survival horror game. Over the course of the journey, we too begin scared, unsure of what's going on or why this police station is decorated like the set of a Lucio Fulci movie, terrified of the nightmarish liquors, powerless against the unstoppable might of Mr. X, fumbling with tank controls, agonizing over which items to take with us given our limited inventory space, but over the course of the game, we become accustomed to these horrors. Suddenly, we have more ammo than we know what to do with. We've already mentally plotted out the layout of Umbrella's secret nest facility and can intuit exactly where to go. We square off time and again against the G-Virus mutated William Birkin, creator of the virus, or against the enigmatic Mr. X, but suddenly it feels like we have the upper hand. We reunite with Claire, hero of her own story that night, as well as William's daughter Sherry, and finally land the killing blow on Mr. X, a mutated Umbrella bioweapon, with the help of a rocket launcher provided by a shadowy figure. It's Ada. Surprise, she lives. Leon then is an effective protagonist because his story, his motivations, the themes present in his descent into and back out of hell that night, it mirrors our own. We see him suffer. We see him bleed. He's just a regular nobody forced into the world of survival horror with not even so much as a good luck, who through the courage of his convictions manages to escape not just with his own life, but having saved those of others. Resident Evil 2 would go on to sell 1 copies. It was the hottest thing on the PS1 this side of Tekken 3. It was the game that turned Resident Evil into the now multi-decade spanning franchise it is today. Right out the gate, sequels and spin-offs were put into work at Capcom, beginning with production on a Hideki Kamiya-led Resident Evil 3, with Leon as the protagonist. A title whose development and mutation into what we now know as Devil May Cry, being a topic I've already touched on before in my DMC3 video. Check that out if you haven't. Suffice to say, RE3 became DMC, and a spin-off title starring RE1's other protagonist, Jill Valentine, as she escaped Raccoon City during the outbreak, internally called RE 2.5, became the Resident Evil 3 nemesis we know today, leaving that idea of the next mainline series entry starting everyone's favorite Boy Scout hanging. It would be 6 years before gamers would get the chance to be Leon again. Let's talk some more about action and horror. I remember distinctly where and when I was the first time I played RE4. It was at my friend Michael's house on a dreary Saturday afternoon in the fall of 2005. There I was, in my friend's dark and stuffy bedroom, taking turns on the controller, constantly dying to the Ganados during the opening village fight, terrified of what we were playing. The game was brutally difficult, and that difficulty, that level of action game execution baked into the game's design, is what made it scary. RE4 might be an action game through and through, but it's still very much a survival horror game. Yes, you kill lots of enemies. Yes, the combat is the point, but it's still a game that features the series' staple lock and key puzzles. The layouts of the village and the castle, and to a much lesser extent the island, are about as open as all the areas past the police station in RE2 are, and the attaché case management is a great evolution of the more classic limited item management found in the classic games. It's less of a radical departure for the series than you'd think, especially when compared directly to RE2. The core of the series is still there, just shift the perspective and it's more or less the same as the first 3 games. This is still a game that operates using tank controls, and interactions with enemies are pretty rigidly designed, but it's those limitations that enable the game to be as good as it is. It's a groundbreaking, forward-thinking evolution of what was already present in prior RE games, enabled by the new fully 3D environments, something that the other first fully 3D RE game, Code Veronica, does not capitalize on as well. Leon then even further embodies this innate tension between horror and action present in Resident Evil. In action games, the thing impeding your progress through the game and its systems is your level of skill. The genius of Resident Evil as an action game series, then, is that progress is blocked, yes, by your knowledge and ability to execute inputs, but also by your own fear. And standing there, right in front of you, calmly showing you not to be afraid of the hordes of enemies this game throws at you, is a new, older, more self-assured, somehow even cooler Leon S. Kennedy. Don't be afraid, he says.
This shit ain't nothing to me, man.
To say that Leon glows up in the 6 years between RE2 and 4 would be a bit of an understatement. He's still aesthetically recognizable as the same character, same swoopy haircut, same angular face, same impeccable fashion sense. But as a character, he feels quite a bit different. something we can hear in his voice as he's now portrayed by a new actor, also named Paul. Paul Mercier's work as Leon in RE4 is some of the most iconic voice acting in all of media.
Where's everyone going? Bingo? Hasta luego.
No thanks, bro.
I've sent my right hand to dispose of you.
Your right hand comes off? What are you buying?
He completes Leon's new early 2000s high-tech competence aura. His cool, crisp voice and the way it contrasts with Leon's more camp, jokey personality going a long way towards imparting this feeling that this Leon really is just a completely different guy. But perhaps that air of untouchable coolness and unfaltering emotional distance is warranted given the plot he now finds himself wrapped up in. Resident Evil 4's story is, in my opinion, perfect. It's a perfectly paced and plotted action horror romp, seeing Leon venture into the Spanish countryside, chasing after a cult called Los Iluminados that has abducted the President of the United States' daughter, Ashley Graham, who they intend to infect with a viral entity known as Las Plagas, so that she can go back to the USA and spread her infection there, basically making her a kind of Trojan horse. So they want her to get caught by Leon and for her to be sent back home, but not really. Also, Leon is now also infected with the Plagas, and there's a Spanish guy who worked for Los Iluminados developing Las Plagas who used to work for Umbrella, but now is wanting to help Leon. Ada's also there, and Albert Wesker is also there. Deeply unserious, oh, for sure. Iconic, bombastic, and rad as hell, absolutely. But it's for sure a plot that has had some of its thematic resonance cut in favor of all that sick as hell action. We can see this most present in this new version of Leon. The desire by Mikami and his team at Capcom Production Studio 4 to create a cool, action-focused RE results in this more campy, easygoing, quippy Leon. The character reborn to suit the 2000s in the same way that RE2's Leon suits the late 90s. But despite his new, nearly superhuman physical abilities and cornball disposition, he's still very much human. The game, yes, is more of an action game, but Leon is still vulnerable. He can get hurt pretty severely, he's up against impossible odds, but he gets through it all with a smirk and a laugh. He's so fucking cool, man. He's kind and dorky and self-assured, and it's in this game that the aura of Leon Kennedy was born. I don't have to mention what a paradigm-shifting game Resident Evil 4 was. I don't have to mention how it practically started the trend of third-person over-the-shoulder shooters that would dominate the cultural landscape for the subsequent, years. I don't have to mention all the lists naming it one of, if not the, greatest game of all time. And I don't have to tell you that when I booted it up a few weeks ago to play through it again for this video, I sat there and knocked out the first third of the game in a single sitting because I was so enthralled and in the zone and just happy to be on the ride of its perfectly paced campaign. Because all of that is self-evident. It goes on to sell, yet again, another. It's ported to more consoles than Skyrim, but the question once again remains. Where do we take Leon from here? What do we do with a character that, over the course of only 6 years, has redefined not just a genre of gaming, but an entire generation? Not once, but twice. How do you top what we saw from him in RE4? How do you grow his aura bigger than what we got here? Just where does a character who has already breached the summit of the mountain and entered the realm of the gods have to go? But down. Look, I gotta be real. I went into playing Resident Evil 6, a game I was playing for the first time for this video, with evil intentions. I went into this game wanting to knock it, wanting to confirm biases I'd held towards its streamlined, mainstream, 2012 shooter-ass design, wanting to clown on its over-the-top set pieces, wanting to sound smug and smart as I called this the fall of Leon Kennedy. And I mean, now having actually played it, those biases were charitably slightly inaccurate. So before we talk about Leon, before we get into what this game does with him, let's just talk generally about what makes this game such an absolute stinker. Much hay has been made about how RE6 is bad because it's an action game, but I don't think that's what makes this game bad. I think if I'm being honest, what I enjoyed the most about it was the action gameplay. It's at times genuinely novel. You can move and shoot, there are baked-in melee combos, you can throw yourself around all over the place to dodge enemy attacks, you can powerbomb zombies, it's all really sick. But then you fire a gun, guns, by the way, you can no longer upgrade, only to find that your bullets land like wet farts. It's like the melee combat and the ranged combat were designed by different people who weren't in communication with each other, resulting in both systems fitting together like mismatched puzzle pieces. And that disconnection runs through the rest of the game's design. The level design doesn't do much to capitalize on the narrative outlined in the scenario, most levels being these restrictive, linear corridors with almost no exploration or downtime, which fails to serve the at times interesting and evocative environmental design. I wish I could take some time to catch my breath in Tall Oaks, or chill in a hidden alcove in the caves underneath the cathedral, or in the market in Langxiang, but nope. Gotta keep moving, gotta keep shooting. Enemies too do little to force you to engage with the game's frankly too robust combat system, outside of occasionally making you dodge a leap or projectile attack. It's just sloppy. And it all could have been so much better if this game felt like it was created under the direction of a more confident, less fearful vision. And attempting to do something for everyone, Capcom made one of the most absolutely forgettable video games I've ever played. Oh, and, Leon's there. RE6 is a game that features not one, not two, not three, but 4 separate campaigns featuring 2 protagonists you can play by yourself or with a buddy, each telling a different side of its kind of stupid and way too self-serious story. You've got a campaign where you play as Chris and some little guy, I don't remember what his name is, a campaign where you play as this guy, Jake, who will never be relevant to the series again, who teams up with a grown-up Sherry Birkin, one where you play as Ada, a character who's really important to this story for reasons I'm not actually sure of, because I only played the first campaign, the one where you play as Leon and a woman named Helena who, for some inexplicable reason, isn't Claire Redfield. Resident Evil 6 begins with Leon S. Kennedy, now in service of the President of the United States, doing the thing. You know, the thing. Anyway, Leon and Helena dome the President, victim to an outbreak of the brand new C virus in Tall Oaks, a city in America, United States. The President was there to disclose the US government's involvement with the Umbrella Corporation and their shared culpability in the Raccoon City incident, and the outbreak was orchestrated by this guy so that the President wouldn't do that. Anyway, stuff happens, Ada's now also here, Helena's sister Deborah gets turned into a hilariously sexy monster, yada yada, we go to China. In China, the site of a mass C virus outbreak, we confront the mastermind behind all of this guy, whose name I've forgotten and will not be looking up. We kill him, Ada's also there. And then the game ends. But not before Ada can do the thing and gift Leon a rocket launcher to kill the big bad. Okay, now the game ends. Notice that I didn't really have much to say about our Mr. Kennedy. And that's because, frankly, despite Matt Mercer's excellent voice work, Leon in this game just ends up feeling a bit like a whole lot of nothing. While Paul Haddad's portrayal in RE2 is dominated by his rookie cop boy scoutishness, and Paul Mercier's performance in RE4 is dominated by, well, just him being the coolest motherfucker who's ever lived, Matt Mercer's depiction of Leon, while technically good, is unfortunately undercut cut by how underwritten Leon feels in this game.
Okay, enough with the mystery. What the hell is going on here?
Now don't get me wrong, there's something there. We get the sense that, yeah, this is an older, more grounded version of Leon, the camp stripped back in an effort to lend the character a weight and gravitas he's never really had before. The issue then isn't with this Leon individually, but with this Leon in the context of all that which came before him. Leons don't just fall out of coconut trees after all. In this game, bizarrely choosing to be a kind of bland, inoffensive, something for everyone kind of game, they inadvertently turned one of the most exciting and beloved video game characters of all time into just another 7th gen video game protagonist. They made him boring. And that's really the thing that ended up defining my experience with this game. It's just boring. If previous even-numbered Resident Evil titles starring Leon S. Kennedy had been games that defined the generations they emerged from, then the inverse of that statement is the case for Resident Evil 6. It's a game influenced by other games around it, who are themselves influenced by RE4. It's the most quintessentially, inoffensively, designedly, cinematically, third-person shooter I've ever played, each moment spent with it more arduous than the last. It's unpolished, unfocused, unfun design, testing my resolve to slog through just one of its 4 narrative campaigns. But you know, despite how mid this game is, as it went on, the only thing I could think of while some of the cutscenes near the tail end of the game played is, man, I love Resident Evil. By the end of my time with RE6, I felt a little bit more positively about it. Is it good? Not really, but by virtue of just showing me characters I care about, smashing the action figures together, doing the bare minimum to jangle keys in front of me, my tolerance for and appreciation of this game's better qualities slowly grew. Leon's character, by the end, ends up feeling more like Leon. And I actually think the way he's written in the final act of the game is actually kind of good. He forgoes a lot of the more campy elements present in RE4 to fit the game's more 2010s action game vibe, a bummer for sure, and while I felt alienated from him at first, once Ada is added back to the plot, and once you get to China, it feels like his character is a natural extension of the version of Leon we see in RE2. He's more subdued, more realistic, but still has that edgy guy with a heart of gold vibe we all love. You can tell that he cares about the people around him, that he's haunted by his past, that he still can't get over Ada. It's all just there. And maybe that's the best thing that can be said about the worst video game depiction of Leon. Even his worst outing, thanks to callbacks to work done by previous games, thanks to the excellent performance given by the man who ruined Dungeons & Dragons, is saved by his sheer aura and presence. But Leon's aura and presence alone would not save the game that surrounds him. Resident Evil 6 somehow went on to sell several, and I mean several, but was dragged by critics and fans alike for all the reasons I've already talked about. By now, we've seen 3 different versions of this character, portrayed by 3 different actors. The series after RE6 now finds itself at a crossroads, split between different identities, mirrored in the different faces we've seen of Leon Kennedy. So it's telling then that in seeking to reconnect with what fans and critics had loved about the series following the step down in terms of quality seen in RE6, Capcom decided to make the follow-up, Resident Evil 7, a stripped-back, classic survival horror experience with a modern first-person perspective, alongside remaking the 2 best games in the series. So then who would Leon be going forward? How would the series' soft, in-continuity reboot reflect on his character? The remakes of Resident Evil 2 and 4 pull off the impossible in being great remakes of games that were already perfect, due to the fact that rather than feeling like they're trying to replace those original games, they instead feel like pieces meant to be in direct conversation with those titles. Resident Evil 2 is now preserved through GOG, Resident Evil 4 is available on Steam and can be given its own remaster through the RE4 HD project. There's nothing stopping you from picking up the whole suite of both originals and remakes and playing through them in series. And I urge you to do so, because this process, at least for me, revealed the true purpose of these remakes. And that's that they make real the things that were implied by the older titles, capitalizing not just on memory and nostalgia, but on the low resolution of nuance and detail in the original works, unifying themes and character motivations, holding together all the contradictory parts of Leon's personality as one coherent vision of the character, and unifying the direction of the series over the course of multiple games by remaking Leon's two most famous titles. Leon was recast, now to be played by the same actor across all games. And the folks at Capcom couldn't have struck gold any harder than they did when they cast Nick Apostolides. Nick Apostolides just is Leon S. Kennedy, possessing the kind of bizarrely spot-on knowledge and understanding of the character across all his different appearances that only a fan can have. Drawing inspiration from both Paul's Haddad and Mercier, Apostolides' take on the character brings together both the doofy Boy Scout and the cornball action hero, but what's most impressive is how this performance, and the games it lives in, capitalize on this through narrative and gameplay to create an arc for Leon that makes sense given our memory of the older games. He starts off unsure of himself, but wanting to do the right thing, the Leon of RE2R playing up Leon's naivete and innate sense of justice in order to sell the emotional impact of his journey into and back out of Raccoon City that fateful night in 1998. His relationship with Claire and Ada, his camaraderie with Marvin, we get the sense that he's a good kid, trapped in a horrible situation, traumatized by the trials and betrayals he suffers that night. The remake of Resident Evil 4, then, continues directly from Resident Evil 2 in ways the original Resident Evil 4 are only ever hinted at and paid reference to. We see that as a survivor of the Raccoon City incident, Leon had no choice but to be fashioned into a weapon by the United States government. We learn exactly how it was that his life was robbed from him. What was once just a regular guy who believed he could make a difference in his community, now co-opted by the state and made into a weapon against his will, in further perpetuation of the nightmare that befell his life that fateful night. He had escaped infection and certain death at the hands of Umbrella, only to lose his life at the hands of a more pernicious evil. This single move at the beginning of RE4R does so much work thematically, tying the Leon we know from RE2 to the one in RE4, his infection with the Plagas during the course of the game's story now acting as a visual metaphor for Leon's own loss of self, a self he defiantly holds onto and expresses, despite his trauma, through his sarcastic personality. What these remakes end up doing for Leon is that they take the legend we heard stories of in the past, the survivor of the Raccoon City incident, the savior of the president's daughter, and turn him into a real person. But all of this only goes some way towards answering the ultimate question of why Leon? I meant for this to be a slightly less intensive, more lighthearted video, something to let me recharge my batteries before tackling my next big project, and I feel like this has kind of gotten away from me at this point, so in the interest of time, I'd like to answer that directly by talking about the three things I think define Leon's lasting power, his chokehold over the Resident Evil franchise, and his intensely, devoted fanbase, particularly when it comes to his depiction in the remakes. And those things are his heart, his physicality, and his gameplay style.
Ada, wait!
At the core of Leon, literally, is his heart. That innate sense of justice and wanting to do good, tastefully undercut by his sense of humor. It's what sets him apart from the rest of Resident Evil's starring cast. A cast that over the years have grown, in my opinion, to feel less and less human. But that good-hearted nature and proclivity towards ruthless aura farming only serve to mask the trauma he harbors. In a series with as pervasive and iconic of a gothic mood as Resident Evil, Leon's is the character whose disposition best fits this aesthetic. Of classy and stylish locales housing dark and terrible secrets, of once noble character weathered by the winds of the modern world. He's a gothic, romantic archetype in the clothes of a modern man, the most Euro-coded American a Japanese artist could ever come up with.
Hey, Hunnigan, no glasses.
Over the years, he's gone from 90s heartthrob, to 2000s supermodel, to 2010's dude guy, to 2020's big burly sexy man in the forthcoming Resident Evil Requiem. But this physicality, particularly in the recent games, is truly of actual note. It's important for a lot of reasons that actually physically appealing men, characters designed with the female gaze, let's call it, in mind, appear in video games. Both for people who get their rocks off to this, and for those who don't. For the people thirsting over this digital man like they've been wandering the desert for 40 years, it's important that characters be designed with this audience in mind. The Leon of Requiem being designed under the strict supervision of women working at Capcom dedicated to seeing our boy finesse gracefully into hot uncle status, being of note in an industry dominated by the male gaze. For the rest of us, it's important to have men in games depicted this way. His physique across all three remake games is a realistically achievable one. His personality and the expression of his gender are affirming to all kinds of folks.
Leon Kennedy is transgender. Alright,
His appearance is somewhat ambiguous and appealing to the widest variety of people, both as someone you'd want to be or be with. It can be a revelatory experience to see yourself as Leon, both as an affirmation of your currently expressed gender, or as a nudge towards seeking a presentation and composure that aligns with who you know yourself to be. But all that physique, for all my waxing just now about gender and identity and the importance of depicting more men in games that are actually sexually appealing and not an incel's idea of what a desirable man is, really what it's best at is doing shit like this.
You like thrill rides?
The thing about being Leon is that when you're him, you're probably gonna be having a good time. Whenever it's announced that a Resident Evil game will be released where you play as Leon, the expectation of an impeccable gameplay experience is raised. This expectation has been let down once before, but in a series with just as many hits as it's had misses, one strike amidst a sea of home runs is a pretty incredible batting average for our boy Leon. So then it stands to reason that we grow restless in our anticipation of seeing Leon's announcement in a new game. My interest in RE9 going from a regular level of interest as a lifelong fan of the series to near astronomic levels of hype once it was finally official we'd be stepping back into Leon's shoes. A playable Leon signals that a game truly understands that there must be a balance between action and horror, the tension between the two, and the player's own journey towards surpassing their fears and being able to tackle the game's horror with style and ease, being the thing that makes Resident Evil, Resident Evil. Leon's gameplay, characterized by games with a tight focus on action, either through a methodically crafted puzzle box that can be solved perfectly, or through deep and responsive mechanics used to keep the tension at a screaming pitch, give players an ideal to aspire towards. Leon as a character is someone who believes not just in the good of the world and others, but in the good in himself. He's someone troubled by a horrific past, whose ideals have been dashed against the rocks before his eyes, but whose belief in himself has carried him through all that which he has been made to suffer. And by forcing you to master his gameplay, so too do you have to contend with the fact that your fears can be defeated, but only if you step forward and harness the skill to do so. Held together, these things, his personality, his appearance, and how it feels to play him, have made Leon not just another video game protagonist, but the protagonist of one of the most influential video game series of all time. I love this man that none of us will ever meet. I relish the opportunity I've been given every couple of years throughout basically my entire life to get to be him for a little while, to check in with myself, my image reflected back at me through the lens of this fake polygonal man, and ask myself, where am I? Am I happy with who I am? Are there things I need to be working on, personally, mentally, physically? Do I need to remember to crack a joke every once in a while? Do I need to remember that it's okay to not feel like I have to perform a certain flavor of masculinity? Do I need to remember how good it feels, actually, to roundhouse kick my problems in the face? Over the course of nearly 30 years and a buttload of video games, Leon S. Kennedy has become more and more, with each iteration, like a real person. He's been molded by the times he's lived through, he's gone through subtle tweaks and changes, he's died a symbolic death only to be reborn, remade and reconstructed from the ground up, not just in his own image, but in the image we, the audience, his fans, have held of him in our minds. We love Leon S. Kennedy, Italian-American icon, because he's raw as fuck, and yeah, incredibly sexy, but mostly because all that time, all those ups and downs, have granted him a quality very few video game characters have ever actually achieved. A quality that cannot be chased after directly, that is not obtained through good writing or the best graphics and motion capture tech, a quality that can only be obtained through time, effort, and most importantly, failure. Humanity. Leon S. Kennedy's a real guy, I love him very much, and I cannot wait to get to hang out with him again soon. That's my boy, that's my dog, thank you for watching. So, this is definitely my first and not my fourth take of this. I definitely didn't just record a third take of it with my mic turned off. That's something that didn't happen. I'm really good at doing this YouTube thing. I'm
really good at making videos.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've made it this far, if you have liked, if you have subscribed, if you've left a really sweet and nice comment or a really mean and condescending comment, legitimately from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. However, I recognize that there is an elephant in the room here. That elephant in the room being that I did not talk about Resident Evil Requiem in this video. And the reason for that is this video took like a week and a half longer to make than I wanted it to. Originally, I had planned for this to come out day before Requiem came out, and now it's coming out like, what, like a week after the game comes out? So that's on me. That's why there's nothing about Requiem in the script. However, having just finished playing Resident Evil Requiem, I feel like I kind of owe it to you and owe it to myself to talk about Requiem. Because for better or for worse, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to Leon's character in Resident Evil Requiem. There's a lot to get into in terms of what Requiem is doing mechanically, what it's doing with its pacing, what it's doing with how it's handling sort of giving us an apology for Resident Evil 6 through its game design and through its structure in ways that are both good and bad. So, next video is going to be a video about Resident Evil Requiem. I'm going to be reviewing that game. I'm going to be giving y'all my thoughts on it, probably in a format similar to this, where I'm just sort of talking at my little, I showed him in the last take, and now I have less of a candid thing to say about him, but when I talking to the camera, this is who I'm talking to. A huge thank you, as always, to my patrons, Litter Ronan, Aurelia, James Theon Solaris, and Ava Knight. If you'd like to join them, if you like my work enough that you feel like throwing me a couple bucks is worth it to you, then I encourage you to do so. You'll get your name read aloud at the end of these videos. You'll get my eternal gratitude, and you'll get access to my videos about a day early or so, and as well as the occasional update. Thank you so much. Once again, legitimately, thank you. Bye-bye.